Hi, everybody. I'm David Bloom, co-founder of Next TMT and Next TMT Talks, is your podcast. Here with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel, as we do our midweek check-in with our partners at Media Play News. Lots going on, of course. This is a particularly event-filled week, I'll just say. Among other things, a changing of the guard at Disney. March Madness takes off with lots of interesting new technology to try to make up for some of the things. And just a little word of the wise to all you degenerate gamblers out there, particularly the more innocent naives sticking their toes in the water. Daniel, let's start with Disney. Tomorrow today took over the day after St. Patrick's Day. An Italian takes over the biggest traditional studio in Hollywood, and he's got a lot to do. The interesting thing, I think, there's a lot of ideas about things he should be doing to transform Disney now that Bob Iger has left for the second time, and apparently this time is the last time. They're not going to pull him back in. I don't think. I can't imagine it happening. But Dana Walden, who lost out to get the top job, and then was given a very lovely consolation prizes as chief creative officer, the first Disney president in 20 years since Frank Wells, has announced all of her reshaping of her staff, which it's a little tiny thing because I can't resist. They took the gaming stuff that had been under DeMaro's remit when he was running experiences, and they moved it under Dana. And I think that's really interesting because they're going to need to figure out how to get more cool new IP. Just doing more Marvel, more Star Wars, more of that stuff isn't going to float the boats down the road. That being said,
he needs to make a big kind of home run move, kind of like Bob
yeah,
Iger did early on.
he's got to make his own home run move. So maybe he buys Roblox. I don't know. That would be a big one. That would be a very big one. But Roblox is where a lot of the people that are going to be would-be Disney fans are busy creating their own little experiences. They have 8 million, I think, active experiences created by many of the users themselves. It is a thriving community with tens of millions of users. That's an idea. We'll see. That would be a big splash. The other big splash has been
Like, I was reading Julia Alexander in Puck yesterday talking about, David Ellison want to buy a really creative deal, maybe buy Roku. Just right away,
You mean with the spare money that David Ellison has after the $111 billion plus the more money he's going to have to splash out for the NFL? Oh yeah, okay. Oh, I've also got another $50 billion right? For Roku. Sure.
I mean, you're positioned on the home screen of a third of North American homes right off the bat.
Right.
Disney Plus.
But nowhere to go off the continent. They don't have any notable presence. They're giant in the United States, but they're not nothing. Most of the rest of the world.
Mexico, Canada.
I don't know if you knew this because you may be a little weak on maps. Mexico, Canada, still in North America.
Right.
Okay. And adjoining the United States. And so fine, they're in Canada and Mexico. That's great. But if you are actually trying to be, a major, and they clearly are, an international presence, Roku only gets you North America. That leaves, I guess they probably have a good distribution experience with the penguins in Antarctica. But
Disney's international, ideally.
Disney's very international, yes.
You want to proliferate an OS, that's a company that could help each other. Anyway, so half-baked.
Well, they could help, but I don't know that buying an OS, because then it means everybody else's OS is no S. I mean, it's like
it's an advertising business.
Yeah, it's an advertising business, yes, but it locks you into that advertising business, which is a nice business. No doubt about it. Nice business. Roku's got a nice business, but it's no longer Switzerland. It's a little bit like what's going to happen to Vizio with Walmart. It's no longer Switzerland. They lost a whole bunch of folks, including Roku, just headed right out, went over to Best Buy and Target because they couldn't get into Walmart anymore. Anyway, so the other thing that's gotten a lot of conversation, and this goes back to last summer, you probably recall Laura Martin said, when Jimmy Kimmel had comments that were deemed insufficiently sensitive to the death of Charlie Kirk, there was a couple of the big station groups, they shut him off. They said, we're not gonna run it, blah, blah, blah. Of course, Brendan Carr had to rattle his sword. But Laura Martin said back then is, do you really need to have broadcast licenses? Maybe you just say, go to abc.com, go to Disney Plus and Hulu, and let those affiliates go figure out what they're going to put on their show, on their TV screens. 70 hours of news a week. That should be great with ma and pa in a smaller markets.
It's what I
But
don't get
now
when you have Brendan Carr out there, supposedly issuing threats, the privilege of broadcasting. Well, I guess a license to get Spectrum is a privilege, but what happens if you have a big company like Disney exit the ecosystem? That's not good either.
right.
That's detrimental to Nexstar, Sinclair.
Yes, that would seem to have an impact on them. And so it's there's a little tension there that I find very interesting, but it is worth thinking about. For instance, do they need to keep ESPN? They have now done the big thing, which is to launch ESPN, the full boat app, right? And that's got basically everything that's on the cable channel. The cable channel was the most valuable cable channel for like 25 years in all of cabledom, right? It just printed money, but it's been slowly, going down. You've seen them laying off some of their talent as they go and kind of rejiggering, trying to pivot to people like Pat McAfee and away from some of the old line folks, trying to figure out what makes sense for a new audience, a younger audience than the ones that just watch football, though they're going to need to figure out football. So some of the suggestions that I've seen from some of the analysts we often cite, take ESPN, ABC, and those other not very useful little cable channels and spin them all off like Versant, as we have now established is the only way we can say this on our podcast. Spin
Put
them
them all in
off,
one app, one
send
one
them out
master,
there.
one marketing funnel.
Yeah, yeah, send them out there and let them go do their own thing. And that's one option. The other option is clutch them to your bosom, much as David Ellison plans to do when he gets the Discovery Global stuff. Now, he needs it for cash flow. He'll milk those things like dairy cattle, but he's clutching them to his bosom because they do still throw off lots of cash. What do you think? Is this the sort of thing and there's no way that Iger was going to do it. Iger started out as a weatherman in a local TV station, worked his way up in capital cities ABC. Disney bought it. He was one of the superb extra gifts that they got when they bought Capital Cities ABC when Michael Eisner bought it. But he was through and through TV, local. That's where he came from. That's his people. So he wasn't ever going to do this, but maybe tomorrow, who's all about parks and resorts and cruise ships and stuff like that, maybe he goes, the company made 17 billion in cash last year. 10 billion came from us. Next year, it's supposed to be 12 billion. Does it really matter that much if we still have these other guys? I mean, what do you think?
You asked me that same question, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I don't think I had a good answer then. I don't run
What were
business.
you doing? You should have figured it all out. You're just kind of kicking back.
I do know they simplified the business a little bit. Like the Hulu app is gone. It's all just one big
Right.
streaming funnel
Is it
through
fully gone? I mean, it's sort of, yeah, if you go into there, it won't log in, which is dumb, but you have to have the Hulu add-on in Disney Plus to get to it, right?
one app that like you access everything like cruises and theme parks and everything cross promotes the other thing. One big confusing app, I think, was the strategy we arrived on.
I have often seen case studies on that at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. One big confusing app. This is always a winner with consumers, but it does at least bring it all together, right?
I
So
say
there's
this,
that.
Disney has something that a brand loyalty with a select group of consumers that few on the planet Earth have. I mean, the kind of
Yeah,
people, and I know them, I went to school with them, I've studied them from afar. I can't get too close to them. But the folks that go to Disneyland habitually and frequently, they got, you could use a cult analogy, but they've got like hooked at an early age and love how it makes them feel and pass it on to their kids. And it's enormously expensive, but they don't care. With, I guess, the buzzwords fandom like that, there's so many things you can do. It's a kind of a unique scenario that requires sort of a unique business course to handle. Like I said,
yeah,
nobody else sells
yeah.
widgets. They're selling it's almost like it's not evil in the same. It's almost like cigarettes. It appeals to the consumer on a kind of bios level.
Sure. I mean, if you think about they're going to be doing, they've got the Russo brothers back working on a couple of Avengers movies. You may recall the last time they worked on a couple of Avengers movies, they generated something like $4 billion in box office. Did okay. Two of the highest grossing films of all time. So they're working on that. I am still not sold on the trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu, though I found the TV show on Disney Plus quite entertaining, The Mandalorian. And Grogu is sort of custom built to hit the cute button in a whole bunch of vulnerable people's guts. I can't make sense of
You
it.
mentioned the motion picture business. I'm going to transition you a little bit and send the reader back to Monday's issue for a little Bloomian terminology. Valedictorian Paul, the DeLuca and Abney, the Warner Brothers mastermind.
Pamela Abney and Mike DeLuca, yeah.
Right, a
So
strange
they were the heads of the Warner studio, but it was a strange scene after they had the greatest one of the greatest nights ever in Hollywood.
yeah.
That was 11 Oscars won by 3 of their movies, which had 30 nominations. That's a pretty good run for one studio. So,
So I
but
mean,
everybody's like, "Oh, no, it's gonna be gone."
and you're stepping into this sort of really uncertain future, and then the next day, a man who made $800 million transacting you says, "Hey, great work."
Yeah.
Speaking of David Zaslav, that's
Yeah,
just
yeah, he could have at least, like, sent it like, given them all a tip or something. It's like, "Here's $100, kid, go park my car," to, I don't know, Paul Thomas Anderson, who directed and won 3 Oscars that night after 11 previous failed attempts to win one. Yeah, it's a little bit of a Paul. I just am trying to think tomorrow probably is going to feel some pressure. He's apparently a very gifted,
I want to transition you to
very
the
likable.
Oscars. We didn't get a chance to
Yeah,
talk about it on Sunday
yeah,
night,
you're
and
right.
you always do. You always want to talk about it, if you don't mind. What was your
It's been days. What is this Oscar thing of which you speak?
well? It was a surprising downward trajectory on the audience. It was a disappointment. It had been steadily recovering since the pandemic,
Right.
and it dipped like 9%. Not massive, but that's significant. And I caught Conan O'Brien's mod.
Were they watching the Kid Rock alternative Oscar
No,
ceremony?
but I did watch Conan O'Brien's monologue, which I thought not only do you have to like perform in front of thousands of of your peers who are very tuned in to every nuance of
Every
performance,
nuance. Yeah,
right?
right.
You have to walk this high wire, and I thought he did a good job, and then he got shat on. You can't. I forgot what I was reading that just said it was a bore fest. It's just you can't. It's an unpleasable audience. The expectations are so diverse. I did think it was interesting that Timothée Chalamet worship has turned. Anything that is so hyped up inevitably
One bad comment about ballet and opera, man, and he was ruined. He's no
doesn't like
longer, he's
ballet.
persona non grata.
I don't even know how to apologize for something like that. That's just crazy.
Well, the funny part about it was he was really just saying, look, movies are a challenge. We don't want to end up like these beautiful pieces. I mean, what he should have said. We don't want to end like these beautiful kinds of art and opera and ballet that have become so expensive and so cut off from a broad audience that they're not dead, but they're isolated. They're encapsulated and they're not enjoyed by a broad audience like they were 300 years ago. And we need to do that.
So his comments were taken out of context, even.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he said them well, but based on that, you're not gonna give him an Oscar. I mean, I am perfectly happy with Michael B. Jordan winning an Oscar. Michael B. Jordan is pretty much up there in the pantheon as far as I'm concerned. He's great. Chalamet's got a ways to go, and it's worth noting that young Best Actor nominees aren't ever winners. The youngest was Adrian Brody, who was 29 when he won. He was barely still in his 20s. Michael B. Jordan getting close to 40, I think now, and definitely has uh, some hair on the peach. He's great and has a long run with the 2 Black Panther films and
I thought was just genius.
Creed. Yeah, the Creed stuff, which he took over for Coogler and directed the third ones. Yeah, he's turning into the thing that I think Chalamet wants to get to.
What did you think of Sean Penn winning for Colonel Lockjaw.
It's an entertaining character. Ukraine
Yeah, but
called,
not
I guess.
it's not varied, it's not I mean, I don't want
It felt a little one note for you.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I didn't I thought it was good. I loved the movie, but I didn't feel like when there's other
Yeah,
performances in that movie.
I would say he was less interesting to me than the other nominees from the movie. I did find it interesting. I noted in a long piece I did for Forbes that the best supporting actress featured four people from Warner Brothers films competing against each other. So it was two from One Battle After Another, one from Sinners, and the winner, Amy Madigan, from Weapons. But it was Warner Brothers fighting itself. I got to imagine that was a very interesting set of planning meetings for the Oscar awards campaigns and stuff. Madigan talked about being sort of adopted by the other movies, which had a bunch of people who were nominated, and she was the only one for her movie, and so she was like running around with them, became pretty good friends with. I personally, I just thought Teyana Taylor was amazing as this almost serpentine, revolutionary nut job woman who both befuddled
Yeah, man, that was
both DiCaprio's character and Colonel Lockjaw. But they gave it to who they gave it to. Madigan and her husband, Ed Harris, had been together for 40 years, worked with probably everybody in town, and this is as much a career achievement award sometimes like this, I think, for her, and so that's what it is. And still, a great night for Warner Brothers. I just don't think we're gonna have another one like this, maybe ever. That was part of my thinking, is that this is a fantastic night, just a fantastic night for Warner Brothers and those guys. How do they how does anybody make the kind of mid-range movies of the scale that DeLuca and Abney did and make the big blockbusters? Like, David Ellison knows how to make Mission Impossible and Top Gun Maverick and things like that. His sister knows how to make Oscar-nominated stuff like Zero Dark 30. He doesn't, and he's gonna be making 30 films a year, and while we were sitting here talking about this stuff, one of their latest films just face planted over at Warner Brothers after that great year. They had a face plant, and now I'm blanking on what the film is. It's probably gonna lose $90 million. So you're gonna do 30 films, you're probably gonna lose a bunch of money on some of them, and you're gonna do all that while everything else is going on.
yeah, but it's the reason why it stands out because nobody ever has a streak like that. It's a really hard business.
It's a really hard business. Really hard business. But
So I
Ellison's counting on it. So
something
anyway,
something
the
differently,
other
I
big thing that Ellison gets to deal with, he's got March Madness, right? Well, CBS and Paramount Plus.
speaking of which, did something interesting. I write for the TV Academy from time to time, and I wrote about all the on-screen graphics that are being developed for live stream sports, which is having a moment. I think it was Nielsen report through Grace Note reported a few weeks ago that live stream sports in streaming on the major platforms is up 52% year over year. So we all know that the rights are migrating to streaming. Companies like Amazon and NBCU Peacock are doing some interesting things. It was just 1993 that David Hill, the big Fox Sports production pioneer, he was working at Sky Sports at the time, and he introduced this thing called the score bug, which was clock, the game clock, perpetually situated on the screen for World Cup action years ago. And until then, we didn't know. I looked at old games; you didn't know what time it was. This is the fire in which the
Right.
game burns, and
And now those things are pretty data rich and have become also a place, particularly for something like soccer, where you can put more advertising, right?
well, I mean, I think that the issue is fan engagement. It was Dolby, research report I was actually part of. I talked to a bunch of worldwide sports media executives and asked them, you're paying all this money for rights in streaming. What can you do to maximize those sports rights? And they said, well, we can get rid of things like latency better. And two, we can make the experience more engaging. And one of the things Amazon did was come up with all these kind of immersive features for the experience. The most interesting, I think, is the thing of the burn bar for NASCAR. Amazon Prime Video took that over a year ago, spring of 2025. There was a lot of fan dissonance. Why is a big tech company taking over my stock car racing? And there was a need to sort of transcend the previous rights holders. So I talked to Alex Strand, who's a product guy there, and what they did was they talked to crew chiefs, they talked to drivers, they went around and sort of talked to viewers, what's missing from the experience.
Well, there's so much data, right? So they had lots of things they could show on the
Right.
screen,
You're talking about a
right? I mean,
company that's based
the
on
telemetrics that are coming out of these cars are insane. Formula One's even more nuts. So if you want data, ooh, they can give you data.
well, through working across channels with AWS, they were able to come up with what's called the burn bar, which shows uh, the amount of fuel a driver has and the efficiency with which they're burning it. So it was an immediate hit. I forgot his first name, Jimmy Byron. I don't know. His last name's Byron. He was in the head. It was the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And the guy's ahead in his Chevy for like 292 laps of 400 laps.
And his gas tank's getting down to here, right?
Yeah, and you look, Russ Chastain is in an excellent position. He's way back there, but he's got a full tank, and he passes him in lap 395 and wins the race. It was an immediate hit with the fans. It's driven ratings, and they're very thrilled with it. They've done, lots of multi-screen gizmos for the NBA. They did the Blitz tracker, which is supposed for Thursday Night Football, which is supposedly more predictive for oncoming blitz than the data that the opposing offensive coordinator has. So that's interesting. I also talked to Jim
There's
Denny.
no comfort to the opposing defensive coordinator, however.
Yeah,
It's like,
not so much job stability already.
like, let's just tune this one in and just, oh, maybe we'll just tweak things a little bit. I'm just thinking.
So similar conversation over Peacock. They have NBA rights. They work with Sport Radar, which is a data technology company based in Europe. They work across channels. You have the legacy of Comcast and X1, which has done a lot of immersive work for the various Olympics that NBC's had the rights for years. And they came up with a bunch of interesting gizmos for the Olympics, for the Super Bowl. For the NBA this year, they have what's called Performance View, which I tried it for the first time last week. If Luka Doncic anywhere on the court, if he has the ball, you can see his shooting percentage from not just like his shooting percentage, but from that specific spot anywhere he is on the court with the ball. That's just one thing it offers you. It really kind of
Right.
changes the experience. For a super user fan, I'm not as much as I used to be. I just want to watch the game now, but I could see myself 20, 30 years ago really getting into this. So I
I
think
got to
that,
tell you, I mean, this is a useful segue. It's cool that they've got all this stuff and they're able to provide it. And I think there's absolutely an audience out there for that stuff. I think part of that audience are people who are gambling on prop
yeah,
bets.
sports betting is
And
definitely part of that.
one of the biggest sporting events for gambling, I mean, Super Bowl, obviously number one, but March Madness and all those brackets in every office in the land, and much else. I just want to say McKay Coppins, who's a delightful writer for the Atlantic. The Atlantic did a really crazy thing. Before the football season, they gave him $10,000. They staked him $10,000 and said, "Go and figure out what it's like to be gambling and making money, um, and how you do it." It's worth noting he is Mormon, father of four, lives in the DC, Virginia, I guess, but never gambled, never mind alcohol or any of that stuff. Uh, Went to his Mormon stakes bishop, and the guy said, "Okay, this is really the money of your employer. This is for a thing, but be careful." And so it's very interesting to read his diary. And there's also a subsequent podcast he did with one of the other Atlantic people. It starts out, he's losing maybe a couple $100, but he's learning it out. And he consults Nate Silver. Remember Nate Silver, Mr. 538? Nate these days got tired of prognosticating politics. He
He's
started writing a
writing about day trading. He's writing about
yeah, he writes a lot about strategies for gambling and all that. Makes most of his money actually, it turns out, from poker, not from all these things. But he has some very useful advice, and McKay Coppins does this, gets more and more wired into it. He's you got to go look for your lines for a specific game across multiple providers, see which one gives you a slight edge. It's all about the edge. and he's spending lots of time. He's getting a little over the top there, and at the end, he's down about 4,000. And if he has this one bet come in on the Super Bowl, he'll be good, and he'll actually make money. So he bets it, and of course, he loses. So he ends up being down like $9,826 or so of the 10,000 that he was staked to spend. And there are some lessons here for our beloved listeners and beyond. Don't do those multi-leg parlay bets. That's a really bad idea. Don't do prop bets. Your chances of winning are extremely low. It's a big payout, but your chances of winning are extremely low. Nate Silver told him, if you make a penny off these things, you're in the top 2%.
I don't know if
So
I want to parlay bet.
yeah, don't do a multi-leg parlay like this team wins and this guy shoots 20 points and this guy gets 6 rebounds. No, none of that. And don't bet in the day because your emotions will take over and you will do dumb things. So those are some words to the wise at a time when gambling has gone from a $5 billion sports gambling has gone from a $5 billion business in this country under previous regulations to a $160 billion business. And most of that money is coming out of people's pockets. It's not going into their pockets. So don't bet what you can't afford to lose, but also don't do dumb stuff that's just virtually guaranteed to lose. So it's none of this like, so you're saying I have a chance? It's none of that. This is no
Well,
Jim Carrey moment.
it's part of everybody's business strategy. It's like in the TV world,
No, it overwhelms TV, right? That's the thing. I mean, all of the leagues went all in. Adam Silver, all those guys said, okay, so let's do it. And you cannot avoid it. And it's everywhere. And they've got their designated partners and all that stuff. And it's the far and away biggest advertiser these days. And it's impossible to avoid. And you got big name stars saying, Kevin, there's a couple people that show up all the time. Peyton Manning's one. Kevin, little short guy.
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart. Thank you. I was blanking on Kevin Hart's name. I was thinking of Chris Rock for some reason. Kevin Hart is the hardest working man in show business, but he's doing these ads with LeBron James talking about stuff that sometimes involves gambling and sometimes it's just them shooting the breeze. But the fact is the advertising is helping finance all those sports rights.
No,
It is not financing you. It's
you
not
are
going to buy
far
you a
more
new
knowledgeable about this, but doesn't Donald Trump Jr. run the regulatory arm that's supposed to regulate?
Well, not directly, but what he does do is, so all this traditional sports betting, FanDuel, DraftKings, all the MGM bets, all those guys are governed by state level regulations. Only about 38 states, not including California, Texas, and Florida, allow gambling, but 3 of the biggest states do not allow sports gambling. These prediction markets have come along and they're very coy about we're prediction markets. We are not sports gambling. But of course, people are doing betting on sports outcomes of a wide variety, including some very problematic stuff. Enough that the state of Arizona just filed suit this week
They're also
against
betting
Kalshi,
on
one of the big ones.
non-sports, like predicting outcomes of geopolitical events, say, right?
Right, like Maduro somebody made $400,000 off a bunch of bets on whether Maduro would still be in office by a certain day
So the
in
president's trying to
Venezuela.
regulate that.
Yeah, so there's some bills out there to try and regulate some of that. Good luck. But more importantly, Kalshi and one of its competitors, Polymarket, both have, as a senior advisor on one of them, he's on the board, one Donald Trump Jr. Allegedly, these prediction markets are regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Board, CFTB. And it has been pretty much like, you guys have a good time. Probably the fact that Donald Trump Jr. is on the boards of 2 of the biggest ones, has helped influence and shape some of their policymaking thinking. And it's not for the best. I'll leave
Get
it at that.
rich.
Remember, no parlay bets, no multi-leg stuff, no prop bets. Don't do it. Save the money. If you really want to spend the money, don't go to the prediction market on Robinhood. Go to Robinhood and buy some shares. Spend that $50 on shares of like an ETF like SPY, which is the whole stock market. And just put that $50 in there and give it $5 every week. And it will grow and it will grow and it will grow, as opposed to giving it to a bunch of jerks in a gambling operation. That's just me. But
whenever I
anyway,
go to the family house in Indio, Palm Springs area, you pass the Morongo Casino, and
yeah,
if you do this trip
good
on a
time.
Friday or Saturday, you gotta wade through traffic all the way there, and it just lets up as soon as you pass the casino on the 10 freeway. Just thousands upon thousands of people.
Well, as Coppin says, for a long time we used to keep gambling in some faraway places in the desert like Las Vegas. And then they got into Atlantic City, where a certain current president disastrously ran a couple of casinos into the ground. Largely, we kind of kept it off into slightly seedy, hard to get to places, and it's gotten more and more accessible. And that hasn't been to our benefit. And by the way, it's not that we just started doing this. Mankind has been doing something like that with gambling going back a few thousand years now, because people have kind of figured out, oh, this is tough stuff. So
I've had
with
close
that,
relatives who've had therapy for gambling addiction. My father sure liked it. I'm trying to keep
it was a lot harder for him to do it back in the day, right? He had to have a bookie.
my son has an aptitude and a predilection for it. But last year, without being a college basketball fan, he was in the top 99.9 percentile on ESPN's bracket in terms of
Great.
predicting outcomes. So I'm trying to
So
get
is he
him
paying
to
for his own college? Is he as a result?
well, I'm trying to get him. He's very NFL literate. He makes great picks in his fantasy leagues, and when he does bet, I'm trying to get him to well, just make a newsletter for service the ad.
That's the big money right there. It's the tout sheet. It's not the gambler. It's the person telling the gambler what to do. Picks and shovels, not going mining. Sell the
Right.
picks and shovels. That's the
Enable
thing.
this epidemic. Let's don't participate in ourselves.
I am merely pointing out that picks and shovels made Levi Strauss and a few other companies very, very wealthy, while a whole lot of people lost everything in the streams of California 100 years ago now. So we're coming up on that. So anyway, I think with that, we probably ought to wrap this up. And you got any pick for who's going to win? No betting here. Does anybody you think is going to win the NCAA March Madness men's
Oh, I am so
side?
bad. I've never come close to winning a bracket. No, I don't. Uh, I'm actually
Okay.
rooting for UCLA to do well. I want to see a Pac-12 team do.
Well, you've got a better shot for UCLA to do well with the women's side, because they have the Betts sisters who are amazing. And Lauren Betts is one of the 3 or 4 best players in the country, and a huge, like 6'6", I think, and just a dominating player. So UCLA has a very good chance to win everything. And best of all, as of early this morning, the WNBA has a collective bargaining agreement
Good.
in hand. And it was really important this year because there's a really tight schedule. They're adding 2 new expansion teams, so they have to do an expansion draft of everybody. A bunch of players, more than usual, set their contracts up to be shorter than usual to come because they thought they would be making more money, and in fact they will be. They'll be making an extra zero in those paychecks, like $500,000 instead of 70,000. So that's a total win. But they've got to do the expansion draft. They've got to get a whole bunch of free agents signed up and lined up. They're going to have to draft the college kids after the stuff is done, and then the season starts like 6 weeks from now. It's gonna be a scramble. So Caitlin Clark's coming back. Angel Reese and her were playing for the FIBA World Cup qualifying games. They went 5. It was fun to see the two of them on the same team because they've got some spice between them, but some great respect, and they're going to be both rocking. I think this could be a huge year for the WNBA. While the NBA took another step to expand into Vegas and Seattle. So, and Europe. They're going to be going into Europe now. So, lots of things to gamble on if you're dumb enough to do it.
Yeah, I haven't caught up on that expansion. That's definitely something I'm going to look at. So yeah, let's wrap this
Yeah.
up. Let's do it again in a couple
Yep.
days. And
Yep. We'll check back in. There's lots going on. It's a pretty full week. Adobe's losing its 18-year CEO and, crazy stuff like that. So, this is David Bloom. co-founder
Dave.
of Next TMT and Next TMT Talks. This is my co-founder, Daniel Frankel. We are so delighted to have you all listening in. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those wonderful things that are the lifeblood of people like us, which is a sad commentary about how things have changed in the journalism world. But we live with what we have, and we're happy to have it. We're very grateful for our partner at Media Play News for our midweek check-in conversation. And with all of that, you can go to nexttmt.com, and that's TMT, like technology, media, and telecom, and sign up to get all this stuff free. Most of it anyway. We're getting into the gated content thing next. But with that, this is David Bloom and Daniel Frankel, over and out.